The most extreme form of bereavement is parental bereavement, and I know firsthand of this pain after losing my baby girl Milli at only 6 days old, with no indication of complication prior to her birth. It came as a complete shock to us. We never got to see her eyes, we never got to hear her cry. As the weeks passed and we were riding the tsunami of grief, those around us expressed how useless they felt. They didn't know that we too felt so useless. We didn't even know what we needed, but I knew at that point I needed to speak out. From Milli's life and death, this podcast was birthed. Little Life, Big Loss, as a safe space to talk about baby loss, grief, trauma, heartache, and hope. A safe space for lost parents to share their stories of their real-life angels. A place for those nearest and dearest to learn about our journeys and to gain a deeper understanding in how to help those who are riding the tsunami of grief. Welcome to Little Life, Big Loss. Episode 6 of Little Life, Big Loss. Today I have a beautiful lady, Hayley, joining us. And as I've done with a couple of the previous podcasts now, I've decided to not take on too much of the story before we get to this point, because I really want it to be an organic conversation and I want to be able to hear it kind of for the first time. So I know a little bit of Hayley's story, but not a lot of it. And it's going to be another emotional one, so get the tissues. Hayley, what I really love to do, obviously I can't do a big intro when I don't know much of a story. So my first question, and I really love this one, and I think it's something we don't really think about when we're going through grief, is who were you before you were a lost mum? Tell us a little bit about yourself before you went through what you've just been through.
I mean, I've been a mum for 12 and a half years now already. My eldest is going to turn 13 next year, and I've been so lucky and so blessed to have other children also. And I think that is definitely like another journey with being a lost mum, is when you do have other children, it changes things like so much more, and you feel like some of the things as a lost mum don't fit you because you have living children. But yeah, I've been a mum for a long time. I have gone back and forth with my career and my children. We've had a huge life. And I have some medical problems of my own. I had to take off work 2.5 years ago. And my partner and I, we just decided, you know what, we want one more child. And while I can't be back at work, while I'm waiting for all this medical stuff to calm down, it is safe for me to be pregnant. Let's try and have a baby while I don't have to worry about work. So yeah, my couple of years leading up to Tori was just being a mum and being able to focus all of my attention on our kids and looking forward to having another and things like that. Yeah.
And I think that's like such a valid point, because I know that even like my husband said it one time. He said, at least they still have another child. Not about you, about somebody else. And I said, oh, hon, I said, that if anything adds another element of pain, because those children were more than likely known about the pregnancy. They were excited. Then you have to explain to them that their little brother or sister isn't coming home. And it's not at all that at least you have another child. And I know people say that to lost parents, because I've had friends tell me that they got told the same thing, or at least you're young, or at least this, or there's no at least. There is absolutely no at least when it comes to baby loss, no matter how many you've already had or how many you get to have after.
Yeah, that's definitely a standing factor that we have tried to make people aware that that's not what we want to hear. There's no at least, there's no bright side or anything like that. It was all horrific and miserable, and we still are. I mean, we're not the only ones grieving. Our kids are grieving too.
Yeah.
And we have a responsibility to put them first, and we do. And sometimes, a lot of the times, our grieving goes on the back burner.
Yeah. because you still have to get up every day and be mum and dad. And,
Yes, we do.
I know for myself, I've been able to sleep for the last 10 weeks and grieve and really feel all the feels. And, even my husband, he's had to go back to work. So I feel somewhat blessed that I've been able to just sit in the grief where when you've got kids, you have to get up and be mum every day.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. I mean, I don't think either or are like one is harder than the other.
I agree.
But it's definitely different, and you do get, I feel like you get opinions that you don't want to hear a little bit more often, because, it's that, at least you've got another child to hold and love. And it's like, yeah, I do. And I love that child. I love my children, but I don't play favorites. You don't,
No. And when you're yearning for another child, which like your husband or your partner and yourself had said, like, we want another child. And when that's in you, it doesn't matter how many you've already got. Like if you still want more and your body and your heart and your soul still yearns for that child, it's still the same. It's the same as yearning for your first as it is yearning for your 10th.
Sorry.
Oh, honey. Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're okay. Take your time.
We have two little boys together.
Yeah.
And something we are a blended family where I came into this relationship with children. He also did. And the decision to have more children didn't come lightly. We had two little boys. They were special needs. As their lives have progressed and they have gotten older, they are both now special needs. Our older son has complex medical needs and disabilities and things like that. And our younger son we're getting there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's 3 now. We're still doing all of those things, but we've got a lot on board for that little boy. And we would constantly ask our older son's doctors, could this happen again? Is there anything wrong? Because we have healthy children on either side outside of our relationship. And we wanted to just make sure that we weren't putting extra stress or pressure on not only ourselves, but our older children. Having a child with extra needs and a disability doesn't just put strain on the parents, it puts strain on the siblings as well. And that's not something we wanted for them. So we wanted to make sure we were doing our due diligence to make sure we had a sustainable household. And we would constantly ask, hey, are we healthy? Are we doing the right thing? Are we okay to have another baby? And everything was fine. They said, no, we're fine, we're good. So we decided, we really want another baby. We did very not so secretly really want a little girl. And so we started trying, and we tried for quite a while. We unfortunately had a miscarriage, I think about 9 months into trying. We found out we were pregnant. It was super exciting. There was a lot of confusion whether I was pregnant or not, so I just gave up with the test and went to the doctor. We got that positive, and I was ecstatic. It was so great, and Daniel was over the moon. We had started organising things immediately because we'd already been trying. it kind of felt like we were already planning for a baby that we hadn't even fallen pregnant with.
And you had already had babies and everything was fine, and you'd had perfect pregnancies by the sounds of it all. You know, you'd not had issues, so why would you not just plan as normal? You don't think something's going to happen, right?
That's exactly it. I had 5 vaginal deliveries with my other children. I was a perfect candidate for another pregnancy and another birth. There was no complications that anybody could have suspected.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my 2 boys with Daniel, are big boys.
Okay, yeah.
Big boys. The only difference between them and my 3 daughters are that I had inductions, because they were so large that my doctors were like, hey, let's not do this to your body anymore.
Yeah.
And so
does that come back to the disabilities, or is it not linked? No, they're just big boys.
Not linked. They're just very big. Their father is quite broad and large. And obviously the 2 of us together, we have big babies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And but I was determined that wasn't going to be the next time. That wasn't going to be my story for the next pregnancy. I wanted to take a step back and have things be a little bit calmer. I feel like the stress of such a intense pregnancy, just with it was my 4th and 5th baby. Pregnancies get a little harder as you go.
Yeah.
And because they were so big, I was struggling towards the end.
And you had 3 other kids to already look after.
Yeah.
And so you're meaning you didn't want to be induced for this next pregnancy?
Yeah. So I'd always wanted a home birth, assisted home birth with a midwife.
Yeah.
So that was our goal, and we had started that process. But shortly after finding out we were pregnant, I had to get another blood test done. And then I got a phone call while I was at one of my best friend's house, sharing the news with her husband, that my levels were dropping and that I should really get in and have another test as soon as possible. And that started the week-long process of, I'm sorry, but you're having a miscarriage.
And how far along do you think how far along was that?
6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, we had our scan and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not quite sure when the pregnancy stopped progressing. It took a little bit for the pregnancy to pass, which was difficult. And Daniel was staying home from work because of what was happening. And then nothing was happening besides the fact that we knew we'd lost the pregnancy, and I had to go in for a DNC at the hospital on the Monday. And I said to Daniel, I'm like, just go to work. It's fine. I will handle it. I'm okay. Just go to work. And about an hour before he went to leave for work on the Friday afternoon, I had started horrible cramping and bleeding. And I didn't want to tell him because I didn't want him to feel guilty about leaving me. But Daniel and I have that relationship where just everything is us. We share everything with each other, even if it's hard to hear, because we know that we are each other's biggest support.
That's so good.
So that was a hard night and a hard weekend.
Yeah.
But we did that, and then we had a conversation a couple of weeks later because we were just avoiding talking about it, like even thinking about it with ourselves. But we ended up having the conversation that we really didn't cope with this miscarriage. We should probably stop trying right now and make sure that we are mentally sound enough to be able to cope with keep trying and be, present parents.
Yeah.
So that just in case this happened again, we didn't fall off the face of the earth to our kids.
Yeah.
So we stopped trying, but we did decide that we wouldn't really avoid pregnancy.
Yeah.
And we thought, you know what, let's just see what happens. We did a lot of healing and talking. We involved our friends in those conversations, which was really helpful.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine right beside me, pretty much doing the exact same thing. She was suffering miscarriage after miscarriage, and they were also wanting another baby, but not trying and not avoiding. About 4 months later, that friend told me that she was pregnant, and it was fabulous. I had so much happiness for that. And surprisingly, I mean, maybe not surprisingly, but I did expect to feel sad, but I didn't. I was just so happy, and
so
that was
good.
great.
Yeah.
And, you know, a little bit further on down the track, I think it was another 3 or 4 months after that, I was pregnant.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, it was so amazing. A little bit unexpected. And yeah, we were just over the moon, and we started the exact same process all over again. It's like, right, now we need a midwife. Now we would like a doula. We are going to talk to the kids about this amazing experience we get to share with them. And it wasn't just, hey guys, this is happening. It was, would you like to be a part of this?
Yeah.
You know, we have...
So inviting the kids to be part of like the birth and stuff.
Yeah, we've got 6 other kids in this house. And I was like, you know, they're all different people, you know, they're their own human beings, and sometimes they're going to be okay with things and sometimes they aren't. And we like to keep open conversations in our house to keep everybody happy. And we, you know, we just had those big open conversations. My 2 older girls were very interested in the details.
Yeah.
They wanted to know how it worked with having a baby at home. Was it safe? Would I be safe?
No.
And we discussed all of that. They got to meet my midwife when she would come home, like come around to our house for appointments.
What beautiful girls for those questions to be there. That's lovely.
They are great big sisters. Yeah. And, you know, everyone was keen on being present and seeing their little baby sister or baby brother come into the world and be around us. So that was really exciting. And we just went on this journey for the first half of the pregnancy going, this is amazing. This is bliss. I feel so relaxed. We hadn't shared the news of our pregnancy like publicly. Very close friends knew, and that was it. I mean, our last pregnancy with PK, our youngest son, I was 32 or 33 weeks pregnant before we announced our pregnancy.
Wow.
So that was kind of normal for us. We like having our own personal space with all of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, my midwife was like, hey, you know, I know we're doing minimal care, but I'd really like you to have your anatomy scan.
Yep.
And I thought, oh God, do I have to? Like, everything will be fine. If anything, they're just going to tell me.
How come you didn't want to? What was the reasons for not wanting to?
I wanted to be left alone. I mean, I think most of the reason why I fell into the let's have an induction moment with my 2 boys was because my mental strength was low. I was in pain. I was uncomfortable. And as soon as somebody offered me an out, I took it. I think their deliveries probably would have been a lot more positive and calmer had I not have taken that route. But regardless, like, that's the route that I took, and that's fine. I just didn't want to do it again.
Okay, yeah.
And I found as soon as I started involving more care into my team, it became it became scary when it didn't need to be.
Okay.
I didn't have a problem with big babies. So I thought, no, I can handle this. I'm healthy, and I've proven myself before that I can have, you know, babies of this size. And I'm going to do it again, and I don't
Totally.
have to have them interfere.
Okay.
And I thought going for that scan was going to be another, you're having a big baby, you need to be doing this and stuff like that. It wasn't because I didn't want to know if something was wrong, because we didn't think anything was wrong. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'll go and get it done. And I called the clinic and I'm like, hey, I've got this window, and I gave them like 3 days. And I think I was just being difficult because I didn't want to get it done. I said, I got this window to get it done. Can I get it in? And she's like, oh, yeah, okay, all right, we can do it now. So it was the following day. And I left Daniel and the boys in the car. We didn't even organize care for the boys. Daniel brought me to the clinic and just waited with the boys. He didn't even come in with me because we're like, yeah, this is just going to be a once over and I'll be good. And I walked in and everything was fine, and the woman doing it was still training, but she was solo. And she gave me the heads up, and we had a lovely conversation. We were talking about my older kids and just everything in general that, I told her I didn't want to know the gender. Absolutely did not want to know the gender, regardless of how much we wanted a little girl. We still wanted the surprise.
Oh, you're so brave. I'm like, tell me. Yeah. Did you find out with your other kids, or were they all surprises?
Kahu was a surprise, our eldest boy, and Aria, my youngest out of my 3 big girls. She was also a surprise. She was my first to do that, and it just felt so great. So when Daniel and I had Kahu, I said to him, I was like, right, I'm doing it. This is what we're doing. I'm sorry. You don't get a choice. This is what I want.
You might inspire me. I'm like, I have to be organized, but look what's just happened. This room is just covered in pink, and I've got everything ready and all the rest of it. And it doesn't matter how organized you are.
No.
Anything can happen. So
that's it. Yeah, that's it. And it was just so much fun having that. With PK, we did find out. I kind of regret finding out. I wish we had held off. But we didn't tell anybody else. So that was just for us. Yeah. And yeah, I didn't want the surprise. No, I did want the surprise, sorry.
Yeah. And so this one, you went in, you had the scan, you had a trainee, essentially.
Yeah.
You said you didn't want to know the gender.
Yeah, so she went over the scan and she seemed to be doing things really thoroughly. And I thought, okay, she's just doing that because, she's got things that she needs to tick off and do. She's trying to learn still. She's going to do things very thoroughly. So I didn't really think much of the fact that it was going for so long. And then my eldest son was brought up about his disabilities and things like that. And she got very interested in asking about his medical conditions and what they were, what they involved. And I thought it was just general conversation. She was interested. Then about 5 minutes later, she's like, look, I'm just going to have to go get somebody and bring somebody in just to do a once over. And I thought, okay, she's learning. That's normal.
Yeah.
So she came in, and then we had 2 people in there doing my scan, and they're like, okay, let's go empty your bladder, do this again. And so I left the room, went to the toilet, came back, and they were discussing very seriously over the pictures. And the woman that had walked in had said, you know what, I'm going to start all over from scratch and I'm going to do your scan completely. And I thought, oh God, this is such, I actually thought this is such a waste of my time.
Yeah, right.
But I wasn't going to argue. I wanted them to be able to do it thoroughly, and, everybody has to learn.
Yeah.
So we did that again. And right at the end of the scan, they are asking me when I'm seeing my doctor next. And I didn't openly share very much that we were having a home birth, because the opinions that come from that are opinions that we didn't need to hear.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't something I was openly sharing. So that's when I had to tell them, well, look, I'm actually not seeing a doctor. I'll be seeing my midwife. Is there anything I need to let her know? And they're like, no, we really need you to see someone now.
Oh, man.
And I was just so confused because obviously they're not allowed to tell you anything. I said, look, well, I'll call my midwife immediately. I'll book an appointment with my GP. Our GP has been our family GP for years. We love him. He's so very trusted in our family. And I thought, well, if I need to see a doctor, I will immediately go and see him.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, normally they tell you, the report will be done tomorrow or in a couple of days or something like that. They're like, the report will be done in an hour. See someone today.
Oh, wow.
And that terrified me.
Of course.
I left about 10 minutes later. I called my midwife in absolute tears, and she was present at a birth.
Bless.
And she answered the phone. She's like, hey, what's going on? And I told her, and she's like, look, as soon as I am able to step aside here, I will call the clinic. I will ask for a verbal report because I can't travel home and get the physical report that they're going to send to me. So I'll ask for a verbal report and I will let you know anything you need to know. A couple hours later, she gave us a call and had said that our baby had an abdominal wall defect.
Okay.
And it was shocking to hear. I cried. It was upsetting. We went over what that would mean.
So in the baby's abdominal wall?
Yeah. So she had what is called a giant umphalocele. It has a couple of different names, but one of the most common names is a giant umphalocele. And there's an umphalocele and a giant umphalocele, and hers was a giant because it included the bowel and her liver. So there was like a little bubble in front of her belly, and that was her peritoneum, which is that abdominal wall, and it had herniated through into the umbilical cord. And so her liver and part of her bowel were in that. And my midwife just discussed with me, she goes, I will still follow your care if that's what you want. I will still be with you every step of the way, but we cannot have a home birth. I'm sorry, but we can't do that. And that was devastating enough to hear. And I feel a little selfish for being upset over that, because in the end, that was for me. But I had to look at the bigger picture, and we had to start moving to hospital care. And that's what was going to be safest for our baby. So, we just did that. I didn't have a problem with it. It was just upsetting. I felt like I had to grieve that process.
Yeah.
And Daniel and I cried.
So you obviously had to leave and go get in the car, and the kids were in the car. You'd had that news. Like, how did you go getting in the car with your kids in the car? Like, did you have to hold it together, or did you show them straight up that you were okay, like you're not okay, or you just were in shock probably?
I just kind of got in the car, and Daniel expected the same thing that I did, that nothing was wrong and it was fine. And I got in the car and I just held his hand, and I just said very quietly to him that we needed to have a talk and that things weren't as great as what we all expected.
Oh, gosh.
But obviously I didn't have anything else I could say to him because I didn't know. And then when we got the phone call, we were back home by that time. And I sort of wandered around our front yard while I was on the phone to my midwife, and she was giving me the news. And then I immediately went to Daniel and I told him, because he had been playing with our kids in the backyard. And I pulled him aside and I told him, and we cried and we spoke about it. And I said to him, this is not the end of the world. This isn't what we wanted, but our child will still be happy and healthy and safe, because the prognosis for something like this is really good. The outcome, the survival rate for this. It's really positive. We spent, I think it was 4 or 5 days just going, this isn't what we wanted, but it's going to be okay. Our child is going to spend some time in the hospital. We're probably going to have some surgeries and things are going to be intense, but they're going to be okay. And everyone talks about no matter what happens, you just wish for a healthy baby. And we thought that's what we're going to do. We're just going to wish for a healthy baby. And then we had a referral put into MARTA MFM on the Monday. And then on the Tuesday morning, we had just dropped our girls off for their first day of school for the year. We needed to get our older son to therapy. So we dropped them off. We've done a quick love you, goodbye, have a good first day, met their teachers, and then we were off. We got halfway to Kahu's therapy and got a phone call from Marta saying, hey, we've just received a referral. When can you come in? And I thought, my week's pretty busy. Next week's pretty busy. What are the appointments like? And they said, oh, well, we actually kind of want you to come in today. Like, when would your availability be today? And I didn't realize that that's what they meant. And I thought, well, I'm not leaving Kahu's therapy. He needs to do that. We'll do that. And then we'll head up. And they said, that's fine. Whenever you arrive, just let us know you're here and we will get you in. So we did that, and we kind of prepared ourselves enough that we thought we knew what we were walking into. So I wasn't going in on my own. I wasn't doing that again.
Yeah.
And we just told our boys that they would get to see their little brother or sister, that we were going to have a talk with some doctors. And because of Kahu's, medical history, they're both very used to doctors.
Okay.
So there was no weird environment for them. And we thought, yeah, this is going to be fine. And we walked in and we got taken into an ultrasound room immediately. We started having that ultrasound, and honestly, within minutes, the tech doing the scan for us, she had just said, she's like, I'm sorry, but, what you've been told is not the full story. I'm so sorry. And then she just started listing off all these things. She had heart defect. She had her abdominal wall defect. She had physical problems with her hands and her size and her growth. And just, there was so much. And then there was also a problem with her brain. And she's like, I'm really sorry, but this isn't great. This is signs to something that is a lot more serious than what you've been led to believe. I need to go get the doctor. Within 2 minutes, the doctor was in, and he's just talking us through it, and he was very blunt. We didn't know how to stomach it and process, because we're also got our little boys next to us. And he was very blunt, and he's just like, all of these attributes of your child, there's signs leading to one of two conditions. Both of those are life-limiting, non-compatible with life. Your baby's going to die.
Oh.
And that's really all we got. He asked if we wanted to, he said the only way to confirm what your child has is with an amniocentesis. And I said, yes, I do want to do that, because we definitely want to know what's happening. While it wasn't a very big chance, there was still a chance that she potentially had these problems without a chromosomal disorder. And we wanted to know. So I said yes, but I was kind of not in the room at the same time.
Yeah. It's like you're having this out-of-body experience, isn't it? Like, I think back to the whole week with Milli, and I'm like, how did that even happen?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't feel like it was me.
I was kind of just numb, and I'm just listening, and I'm trying to shut off part of me so I can listen with the medical experience that I have. I need to focus on what he's saying so I can make the absolute best decision.
Yeah.
For my child, not an emotional decision as a mum.
And explain what an amnio I know what it is, but just so that if
Yeah.
anyone's listening that doesn't know, what does that involve and what are the risks or pros and cons?
So an amnio is a very large needle, and it sounds very scary. It looks scary, and it was scary. But yeah, it's a large needle that enters through your abdomen, through your uterus, and into your amniotic fluid or your baby's amniotic fluid. That draws a sample, and that is what they can test for any abnormalities, any conditions that they can find via that way. That's how they do it. It wasn't excruciating, but it definitely wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
They gave me the risks that there was a chance of miscarriage, there was a chance of labor being stimulated from this, a chance of infection. Those chances aren't huge, but they're there. You're always given those conversations. I mean, you should always be given those conversations with procedures. I can't say that you always are, because sometimes it doesn't happen, but that is what should be happening. Don't ever do a procedure without it having been explained to you fully.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they went through it and they asked me, and I said yes. I knew that I needed to know exactly what was happening with my child, and I didn't actually click that would happen right then and there.
Right.
And so then they walked out, and then moments later, again, everything happened so quickly. They walked back in with another midwife with everything. Their procedure table was ready, and I looked at it and I just burst into tears and I ran out of the room. I couldn't comprehend that this was actually happening. I ran to the bathroom. I threw up. I think I was just wailing in the bathroom. Daniel walked in shortly after and picked me up off the ground and helped me get back in. I composed myself as much as I possibly could. We went back in. We proceeded with the amnio. And something that I'm so thankful that we did was we asked the tech if they could please write down the gender of our baby. We didn't really think about what we would be doing with it, but we know that because of what was happening, we wanted the choice to be when we wanted, not we chose not to, and now we've got to organize another scan if we want to, and things like that. So we did that. And that was kind of it. We left that room. We walked into the doctor's room, and he just said, you've got an option to induce your labor now, which would be a termination. I was 20 weeks at the time. You can induce your labor now, and that would be for the reason of termination. Your baby is likely not to survive the labor, so they will have passed. When you deliver.
So they call that a termination for medical reasons?
Yeah.
TFMR. Yeah.
Or you can carry through the pregnancy, get as far as you possibly can, and then deliver the baby and let the child die after delivery, because no matter what, this child is going to die.
Oh, my word.
And we said, but why can't we do something? Why can't I do the pregnancy, go through with the pregnancy and try? And he said, because you won't find anybody who will help you. And I was so confused. That was a really
This was the doctor at the women's hospital that you're at?
Yeah. He said that the hospital's stand on termination did not allow for me to continue my care there if that was the option I chose. And with the secondary option of going through with the pregnancy, but then letting our child die on, their timeline, which would, like he said, it would just be immediately. we didn't need to be at that hospital because that hospital wasn't our local. We had to bypass our local hospital to get to this hospital. And he said, your local hospital can handle that because they won't have to do any supports for your child because our hospital won't support a child with these sort of needs. And that has stuck with me the whole time, the whole pregnancy. Is it wasn't that they can't, it's that they won't.
Why?
Because both of these conditions that were suspected they are labelled. I shouldn't say they were, because they are, and that's the frustrating thing. They are labelled as incompatible with life. That no matter what, they will die. So we don't need to do anything.
Oh, my word.
And that just wasn't acceptable for us.
Yeah.
Not with the little information that they had. So we left that hospital. I think we were there for about 40 minutes. All of that happened within 40 minutes.
Whoa.
By the time we were walking out, my contractions had started. And
because of the amnio.
Yeah, because of the amnio, they trigger contractions, but I just ignored them. I wasn't going to turn around and go back. I just wanted to get out of there after what we had just heard. I was so angry and so upset and confused.
So they would have let you stay if you chose the induction?
No.
Or no, they just didn't want anything to do
regardless, they told us to leave and that this hospital could not help us. To go get a referral to go see our local hospital and have my care there, because that's like they'll be able to do anything that, that hospital was willing to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we were angry and so upset. And we left that hospital and then drove to our kids' school and picked them up for the end of the day. And having to just shut that off.
Yeah.
For the sake of their little minds and their little hearts was not healthy.
No.
I needed to feel it.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to. But that's what we had to do. We didn't have a choice. So the next couple of weeks were full on. We got in with our local hospital, and the day that I did, I stood at the clinic bench and I'm just like, I had a referral sent in 3 days ago, and a referral sent to a hospital and not being seen within 3 days. Very reasonable.
Yeah.
Public hospital, that stuff takes weeks. But I was not. There is no way I was stomaching this on my own without any guidance and things like that. So I think they'd had the referral for like 3 days, and then I stood at their desk and I'm like, you guys have a referral for me. Someone needs to find it and I need to see someone now.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand why I was so upset. And I said, a week ago I left a hospital that said I either have to terminate my pregnancy within, he said they go up to 24 weeks or something like that, to be able to do this induction for termination. And I was like, I've only got a couple of weeks to discuss this with the doctor and things like that before that choice is taken away from me and I then have to go through a pregnancy, because I didn't know what my choice was at that point. And we didn't want to be forced to go through an entire pregnancy if our decision did end up being having a termination. So I needed to see somebody and get some sort of help.
Yeah.
And this beautiful woman behind the desk, she goes, you know what? I think I've got the perfect person for you to see. And she left, and about 5 minutes later, she came back with a doctor who at the time, and I believe still is, the head of obstetrics at our local hospital now. Beautiful man. I think she pulled him out of a meeting, and he immediately brought us into one of the clinic rooms and we sat down. I think we spoke for about an hour and he just went through everything. By that point, we were able to tell him the diagnosis of our child. And I mean, saying it out loud, our child had Trisomy 18, Edwards syndrome.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why listening to you was so close to my heart, because the very first episode I heard was of you having a conversation with that beautiful mum and her little boy who had Edwards syndrome. And as soon as we told him, his face just dropped.
Oh.
And he knew the conversation that he would have to have with us. And I told him at that point, we knew the gender of our child. And I had told him the story as to how we found out the gender, because just for me, everything that was going on, that was really important to me too. And, you know, we had taken that envelope that we had gotten from the MFM clinic and brought it home, and we sat on the bed and we discussed what we would do with it. Were we going to find out? And then we decided we wanted to feel a closer connection to our child, and we felt like if we could give that child a name and know if it was a boy or a girl and things like that, that would help us with our decisions, because the decisions that we had were huge.
Of course.
And we decided to choose names first. We chose a name for a boy and a name for a girl. And we sat for a bit and we held each other on the bed. And then we opened the envelope. And this big piece of paper, and right in the middle was these tiny little words saying, "Your baby looks like a girl." And I just screamed. I just screamed. And Daniel cried. A couple of minutes went by and Daniel went and he went into the bathroom and he was sick.
No.
Like, it was just... We got our little girl. We got our little girl and...
And you weren't going to get to bring her home.
Yeah. But we shared that with this doctor, and I think it helped build a rapport, sharing the vulnerable moments with him.
Yeah. And because there are some really shit medical people out there, and there's some really freaking beautiful ones.
Yeah.
And when you find when you said before you have a great GP, I was so happy for you, because they are few and far between. So to have a good GP and a good obstetrician, you know, that's a miracle. Yeah.
And he said to us, he's like, you know what? After we shared all that information with him, he said, look, this is who I am in this hospital. And this is my role. I have only just started. I've only been here a couple of months and taken on this role with the hospital. I'm actually not seeing patients as a regular. Like, I don't have, you know, he wasn't doing that. He was running the place. And he said, you are now with me. You are now with me. When you need to see somebody, you will see me. I will look after you. And he did. He really did. When we would go in and have scans and conversations, my son would cuddle up on the bed with me. I have photos of Kahu and I curled up on this bed and my obstetrician doing a scan, and Kahu would sit there and look at the screen and go, baby sister, baby sister. He just loved his baby sister. And we would always have conversations. We would talk about how her heart was going, how all of these things were going.
Did the kids know at this point that anything was wrong?
I mean, I think we were around 24 weeks. when we decided to share that information. We knew that we needed to tell the kids because this couldn't come as a shock to them.
Yeah.
I tried to think about the best, like there was no great way to do this, but the best way to keep them supported. It wasn't that to protect them, because we couldn't just protect them. This was going to be hard for everyone. And I said to Daniel, I said, we need to make sure that as soon as they know, they can turn anywhere and be able to speak to anyone. So we spoke to the schools. We let our family know. I mean, most of our family all of our family that we called, we had to tell them we were pregnant first.
Oh, they didn't even know.
They didn't even know. And we'd been dealing with this on our own. And so we had to share that we were pregnant. And the first thing we would get from them was, oh my God, congratulations.
Yeah.
And then we would immediately have to go, and explain that. I mean, the first night that we did those phone calls, I think we were on the phone for about 6-7 hours, just calling like my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, I can't even name everybody. There was just so many, and we're trying to share this information. And I didn't tell my parents until the following day. They work away. They were on shift. And I thought, God, I can't even talk to my mum. I can't even tell her because I will not be able to do it. So I messaged my dad and I'm like, hey, look, I really need to speak to you. I need it to be away from mum. I needed him to be able to share that news with her and then let her have that moment that I had. Because we couldn't have it together. We would just make it so much worse for each other.
Yeah. You're really close?
Yeah, we are now. We have a great friendship. As I've become a parent and gotten older, our relationship has been that on the phone nearly every day and talking and things like that. Yeah. And yeah, so we made sure all of our family and friends knew. And then, yeah, we turned to the schools and we're like, hey, this is our situation. This is the kids' situation. They're about to be told some huge news. And we need to know that everybody around them can support them, because if they feel like they can't approach us because we are also upset and crying, they can approach anyone.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
Yeah, that's what we did. We, organised the school counsellors to meet up with them and all that sort of stuff. And that was a huge help.
They were good?
Yeah. Oh, yes. There wasn't a single, body of people that involved our kids that weren't supportive for them.
That's so good.
And that still carries on now. And so, yeah, then we sat down with all of the kids. We waited until my stepson was home also. And we had this big conversation with them. Our little boys didn't understand. They couldn't really comprehend. Kahu was 4, but he's still not developed. Yeah, his development didn't, it's delayed, and he also wasn't really able to comprehend what was going on. Our big kids just sat there and cried with us. And we always stressed if you have questions, ask.
Yeah.
Any question. You can ask any question and we will answer it for you. And they used that. They utilized that open communication the entire pregnancy and even after. So that was, I think we did the absolute best that we possibly could given the circumstances.
Yeah. No one gives you a guidebook on how to do these things, right?
That's it. We were constantly asked, do you guys have support? And we would say yes, because as far as we were aware, the support that was needed was for our kids. And that's what we were focused on. And Daniel and I weren't seeing any counseling or anything like that. We were relying on each other. And I'm really glad that we have the relationship that we do, because if we didn't and we were only relying on each other, I mean, that would have been a really dangerous situation for us mentally.
You can see how marriages fail in these situations, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, Dylan and I are extremely strong and loving and communicate well and respect each other. And like, I had a really dark week last week. And I was so grateful that I had such a beautiful, loving husband that was so gentle with me, because if he had have been angry or, you know, whatever, it wouldn't have ended well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And getting the diagnosis before having a child, like getting the diagnosis antenatally, meant that we were faced with so many decisions before we could even really act on them. And just having differing opinions on how this should happen. You know, the doctors would talk to me and only me when it came to asking these decisions, because in the end, that's how it works. Mum makes the decisions.
Yeah.
And Daniel was feeling very pushed out. So I did everything I possibly could. I said, no matter what, this is our decision, not my decision. Anything that's spoken about needs to be shared with Daniel. I wouldn't give them an answer if I couldn't get an answer from Daniel first, because it wasn't Daniel making the decisions, but we would discuss them together, and everything was done together. And that was probably one of the most important things with us.
Yeah.
And yeah, we would constantly go for our scans. We would get told how things were going, how things were looking, but we always got told we won't know the true picture until you deliver. We decided to go through with the pregnancy, and we wanted interventions for her.
Yeah.
It was hard because they did say very honestly that the hospital was limited in the interventions that they could offer, because they're not a tertiary hospital. So, you know, we were struggling with that. We wanted to go back to the MARTA, but we were scared of dealing with what we had dealt with in the beginning, and being pushed away. We wanted the absolute best care for our daughter, and we didn't know where to be for that.
I'm so sad that you had that experience at the MARTA, because, you know, we had such a phenomenal experience there with such amazing people. And I think it's just such a shitty reality that because the diagnosis or the situation is different, that you get treated different.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know, but it's,
yeah, I mean, the whole pregnancy, we did a lot of research into her condition, but not only just her trisomy, also the effects of her trisomy. So her heart, her abdomen, her brain, her just everything that we investigated and researched. I think we got to 30-ish weeks. And I said we had been linked in with the pediatricians at our local hospital also. And they were having conversations about what they would do for her. They gave us a run through. As soon as you deliver, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And they gave me a step-by-step as to what they would do the second she was delivered, regardless of her condition. And that was great.
Yeah.
But I wanted more. I knew that I didn't want to be in a place where she couldn't have everything thrown at her to give her that chance.
Yeah.
And that's when we started the discussion of trying to get back to MARTA. My social worker at Logan, and my obstetrician. We had a secondary obstetrician that came in a little bit further on in the pregnancy, and she was godsend also. She worked side by side with our original obstetrician, and she's like, you know what, we're going to have a conversation with Marta. We're going to get you in and have a meeting. Within a week, we had a meeting. We had a meeting with the director for the MFM at Marta and the director of neonatology at Marta.
Yeah.
We walked into that ready to fight. Like we had our backs up and we were going to fight. We wanted to be there and we weren't going to take no for an answer. The first
Because
thing,
you were like, my baby deserves this.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What, you know, why can they fight for some babies and not for your baby?
That's it. And the first thing we heard when we sat down is, I'm so sorry to hear how you guys were treated when you first came here.
Oh, so good.
We didn't have to bring it up. We didn't have to do anything.
That's amazing.
It was immediately acknowledged, addressed, and that is all we needed to hear. We're like, okay,
great.
Amazing. Let's move forward. Let's focus on what we can do now. And that's what it was. We sat there for hours and we had a NICU nurse in there. We had the MFM midwife in there, everything. We made a plan for absolutely everything, including choosing a cesarean for delivery.
Okay.
That was a huge step too. I mean, I went from home birth, no one touching me,
far out,
to cesarean at a high care hospital.
Yeah.
I cried over that. I was terrified.
Of course. Yeah.
I couldn't believe. I'm like, I'm going to have a cesarean, and I never ever thought that would be my reality.
Wow.
And props to absolutely anyone who's gone through one, because that sucked. Yep.
That's me.
Sucked. I would never ever choose that again. But at the same time, I definitely understand where people come from when they say, I would have a cesarean again over.
Yeah, I
do understand that because people who have a traumatic labor and failed vaginal delivery where it then turns into emergency cesarean and things like that, why would you want to put yourself through the possible trauma of that again? I understand that too. But in reality, for myself and my personal story, oh no, no way.
What was it that because you have the comparison of 5 vaginal births, so 3 natural vaginal births, 2 induced vaginal births, and then a cesarean. So what was it about the cesarean that you're like, was it the recovery afterwards or the actual procedure?
It was the nature of not being able to hold my child immediately. Being
was
separated.
That because she was unwell though, or is that because of the Caesar?
Both.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
That was both. If I'd chosen to hold her after delivery, it meant that I was taking away time for resuscitation and things like that that she would need.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to hinder her at all.
Yeah.
But not only that, like the cesarean, it doesn't offer what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I had to just let that go because in the end I was making this decision for her and not me.
Yeah.
If I was making the decision for myself, I would have had a vaginal delivery, but I was making the decision for her, and a cesarean was the safest option for her.
Yeah. So was the thoughts around that if you had a vaginal birth, she might not have survived the birth?
That was while I was pregnant. There was a high risk that she would not survive the vaginal delivery. Once she was born and assessed, we were given the confirmation, later on, it wasn't like immediately you've delivered a baby and they're like, by the way, you made the right choice. But you know, afterwards,
Okay.
after knowing her condition and things like that, we then found out that, yes, if I had delivered vaginally, she would have passed away. And if she hadn't, if she would have passed away, like her complications would have been made even worse. So
Okay.
I am really glad that that's what happens. I went, the cesarean was so scary, but nothing that I regret. I just wouldn't do it again. We made our plan for a cesarean, and this entire time throughout my pregnancy, I had a doula, and this woman was the biggest support ever during this entire process. The biggest support. I owe so much to this woman. She also does photography, and she has volunteered for Heartfelt quite a number of times.
Yay. Yeah.
So having her beside me and I'm able to bounce things off her and vent and things like that throughout that entire pregnancy was a huge help. And she took some beautiful photos during my pregnancy, throughout the entire process. But, you know, during my pregnancy, to be able to remember that I nearly didn't go through with it because I was so scared.
Yeah.
And when we were making the plan, I said to them, I said, but I need a second support person in there. And they're like, look, we don't really do that for cesareans.
No. Yeah.
And I explained that she was a doula. She has been in the theatre before. She has experience. She is respectful. She's also a photographer. And we really want to have these memories because we don't know what's going to happen. And they got that approved for us. And
amazing.
Alyssa was in with us for delivery, which I wouldn't have coped without, because once Tori was delivered, she was removed and needed all of the supports that she needed, and Alyssa stayed with me, so I wasn't on my own.
Yeah.
And going through recovery on my own and not being present was not something I wanted to. Yeah, I mean,
I know.
Listening to you speak about your recovery, like that separation moment, I was so thankful. Like, that made me so much more thankful, even more than I already am, because of the fact that I had Alyssa beside me.
Yeah. I remember asking if I could have an extra support person, because I was originally going to be induced, and then my baby was breech.
Yeah.
And so I had to go in for a Caesar because a vaginal breech birth isn't, I mean, I could have pushed for it apparently, but I didn't want to. My whole thought was, well, she's breech and they're suggesting cesarean. This is the best thing for my baby.
Yeah.
And when I look back now at how sick Milli was, which we didn't know until she came out, I don't think that Milli would have survived a vaginal birth or would have been way worse. So very similar scenario to you.
Yep.
We just didn't know about it.
Yep.
And so I didn't get that time with her on my chest either, but that was because she was so unwell that they put her on me for a second, cut the cord and put her straight on the resus table. And it was awful because I had chosen a maternal assisted C-section.
I love
so that. I know. I was in the drapes, which is why it was probably so traumatic. The Caesar was extremely traumatic for me.
Yeah.
But I don't regret it because I had to do that for Milli, and I don't think she would have survived otherwise. And my recovery was amazing. I had literally no physical pain, but was that because my baby was sick and dying that I had all my pain was in my heart, and I didn't feel anything in my uterus, I swear. So, I'm not sure. And when they couldn't get Milli out, they had to cut my uterus in a T incision. And so I actually can never have a vaginal birth again anyway. My uterus will rupture and I will die.
Yeah.
So my only options are Caesars now, which again is so fine. I do whatever to get my baby here. But
that's exactly it. You just do what you need to do when you want to have babies. You want them safe.
Yeah.
And you want to be there with them.
Oh, yeah. And they took Milli away straight away to NICU, and Dylan went as well. So I was just there on my own I had a beautiful team around me and they were divine. But it's great that you had the doula there, and she took the photos.
Oh, she took amazing photos.
I think they would have let Heartfelt in. So Heartfelt is a volunteer photography company that come and take photos in these instances, and so I'd say they would have had let Heartfelt in under the circumstances anyway. So yes. That's really good.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, that was our winning argument with having a secondary person in for the cesarean, was because of the prognosis, because of everybody's expectations.
Absolutely.
They were trying to give us as much support and as much memories that we could have. No one knew what was going to happen, but they all expected the worst. There was still a chance that she was not going to survive even a cesarean delivery.
And so at this point, you and Daniel had still had no professional help, like psychologist, counselling, anything like that for the two of you?
I hate to say it, but it's still the point now.
Oh, darling.
Yeah.
Why?
We've acknowledged that that's what we need, and we have started to reach out now.
Yeah.
But, we were just so busy. And we have been trying to just focus on everything else. But we're realizing now that we really do need some support for ourselves, not just for our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if if mum and dad aren't in sound mind, then everything fails. So, and you guys sound like you're phenomenal parents. So it's not at all that you're failing, but you need to take care of your own mental health for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want to have to step away and not pay attention to the emotional needs of our children. But I worry that the closer we get to the first anniversary, like her birthday and then the first anniversary of her passing, that we're going to really dip. And I know that we need to get some support on board before we reach that point.
Honey, and Christmas. Like, Christmas is... I'm so scared for Christmas.
Yeah, I
walked through the shops yesterday and there's Christmas stuff everywhere, and I just felt this instant heartache of, fuck, I'm going to have my first Christmas like in just a few months and my baby's not going to be here. Like, that's fucking awful.
Yeah. We have focused on how we can remember her.
Yeah.
I think that's probably been the really big help, is we have focused on how we can remember her. And, and it's so scary because it's weird that I sort of listen to other people's stories now and I find so much comfort in it because there's so much similarities. And even just the weird coincidental ones, like, you were talking about how when Milli was born and after she passed shortly after, it was your husband's birthday and Father's Day and things like that. I think it was 3 weeks. It was, now I'm trying to remember. I think it was 2 weeks after her funeral was Daniel's birthday, his 30th.
Yeah.
And the plan was to have this big, huge party. Like, all right, we're going to have a brand new baby, but, we'll make it work. And let's
party with a baby.
Yeah, let's celebrate your 30th.
Yeah.
And it was miserable.
Yeah. How do you celebrate? You can't.
Yeah. And Father's Day was the same. He got out of bed and tried to do his very best because the kids wanted it. The kids wanted and to celebrate Father's Day, and they were excited, and that's why we did Father's Day.
Yeah.
And it was so great that he got the opportunity to spend Father's Day with his children, but it wasn't what it was supposed to be.
No. So what was Tori's birthday?
The 24th of May, 2023.
And then she passed away on what date?
The 29th. The 29th of May. Because they all told us that we weren't even going to get minutes with her.
And so talk us through. So you had the cesarean. She was taken straight to NICU. I imagine you were in recovery with your doula. Daniel stayed with Tori at this point, and then what were the stages that happened next?
I mean, we kept getting the warnings while I was in recovery. You need to get down here. Things are getting worse. And I kept...
because that's so awful. Like, you're like...
It's like, okay, I'll just get up and walk down.
Yeah, but I've had a spinal and I can't walk, and I'm shaking and I'm probably vomiting and I'm in shock, and I don't know how many minutes, hours, days I'm going to get with my baby.
Exactly. And it's just sort of like, well, I can't do anything. Talking to me is not helping. You need to talk to my nurse who's in charge of where I go and when I go.
Yeah.
And I'm telling my nurse in recovery, I need to get down there. I need to get down there. And I don't think she was actually made aware of the situation.
Oh.
She's telling me, look, you shouldn't really be going down there. There's not a lot of room down there. You're going to go to your room first, and then you'll get to go down and see your baby. And I'm like, no, that's not happening. I need to get down and see my baby. They're calling me. I need to. And I spoke to the nurses down there, and who was present in theatre during the delivery and who helped with Tori move her from theatre, like deliver her, move her from theatre to NICU. They were the ones who were still with her.
No.
And I told them, I'm like, she's saying that I'm not coming down, that I can't come down. They're like, don't even worry about it. Minutes later, they're in the room and they're taking me.
Yeah,
I was like,
so good.
oh my God.
Yeah, they're like earth angels.
They are. They really are. And I mean, I had gotten a glimpse of her when she was delivered. They gave us the warning. They're like, okay, we're going to deliver soon. I had somebody beside me and he asked me, do you want me to drop the drapes? And I'm like, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Drop the drapes, and they pulled her out, but I heard her before I saw her.
No.
And they told me she would never breathe. She would barely even be there if she was. And I heard her before I saw her, and that gave me the most amount of hope. She just screamed. And she didn't even sound fragile. She cried like I've heard any other baby cry their first cry.
Yeah.
And it gave me so much hope. I was like, oh my God, she's crying.
She's here.
Yeah. And I saw her, and I mean, I am so glad that Alyssa was there to get those photos, because I saw her. I laid eyes on her, and they held her there for just, a moment, and then they had to take her. But because of everything, if Alyssa hadn't gotten those photos, I wouldn't remember what that looked like.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm so glad. Yeah. I'm so glad that we've got those to look back on. And yeah, so they moved her into this little baby room that they had off to the side for resus and all those things. And, she did stop breathing. She needed immediate help. But I mean, that didn't bother me. I was just like, she is so strong that she cried. She was breathing. She is alive, and she's gonna
She's
fight.
already done more than you said that she would do.
Yep, that's it. And I was so excited. And then when we were in recovery, they're giving me this, we need to talk. We need to make some decisions. Supports are being upped. And it had only been an hour.
Yeah.
I was struggling to comprehend how quickly things were changing. And I got down there, and they wheeled my big bed in.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at her, and they're like, do you want to hold her? And I don't even know if I answered. But of course, it was yes. And they've moved my gown around, and they've put her on me. And it felt like nothing was wrong. Holding her for the first time, I couldn't even think that there was anything wrong. It was just perfect. We held her for a little bit, and I mean, we did have to have a conversation. They were updating me on how she was going, what they had to do while I was, separated from her. And I stressed, do not waste time trying to call me. Do not waste time trying to contact me. If Dad is standing there like he has been this entire time, whatever he says, I'm going to agree with.
Yeah.
We have spent months going over these decisions.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had, while it was so horrible going through an entire pregnancy, anticipating the worst, we did have that privilege of being able to have those discussions within each other. So I didn't feel like something was going to happen without
like your consent or something that you wouldn't have wanted.
Exactly. I knew that I could do what needed to happen and not be, I was scared regardless, but not be scared that something was going to happen that I didn't want to happen.
Yeah.
So I needed to be moved to my room. They're like, right, if you can get yourself out of the bed, dressed and in the wheelchair, that's when you can leave the room. Alyssa made me eat.
Yeah.
She's like, you got to eat. And I was so sick from the medication as well. So, you know, I ate. She helped clean me up. She helped dress me. She helped get me up and into the wheelchair. Like, there wasn't anything that I could do on my own. She helped me with everything.
Yeah.
And she wheeled me back down. And I think, like, we just stayed there for hours. They had already taken x-rays. Like, some of the things that we didn't know what would be is they didn't know whether she would have a full connection from her mouth to her stomach.
Okay.
They thought that she might have a blind-ending esophagus. I had complications during the pregnancy where I needed to have a fluid reduction where they reduced nearly 3 liters of amniotic fluid they drained during my pregnancy.
Far out. I think AJ said that in her podcast, didn't she? That you as the mother gain a lot of weight, which is all fluid retention because of this.
Yes.
Like, because of the condition.
I was like at 24, 25 weeks, I was nearly bigger than full term. And they kept offering this fluid reduction to me. And I'm like, no, too many risks, no, too many risks. And then it got to a point where I had gone into early labor.
Yeah.
And the fluid had caused that. We managed to stop the labor. And they said, right, you're going to go back into labor. And I don't think we'll be able to stop it again.
Okay.
Are we doing the fluid reduction? I said, right, now we've reached a point where I don't have a choice. I will do it now because it poses a real risk. Let's do it. The risks of doing the procedure are better than not doing the procedure now. And that's when I was willing to do it.
And how did they do that? How did they remove the...
It was a very similar situation as the amnio that I had done at 20 weeks, except they hook it up to a pump. So they put this big needle in and it is attached to tubing and it's a suction, like they use the suction on the wall and they just keep going.
Wow.
But like an amnio, it can cause contractions. And during the procedure, from memory, I think it took about 20 or 30 minutes to do the whole thing. And I had started contracting during the procedure with this needle in through my uterus.
Ouch.
And the contractions were so strong. This needle was the length of my forearm. And there was about a quarter of it outside of my stomach. And I watched it bend because of how strong my contractions were. You know, they could give me a local... So it could like numb the skin on the outside when they first put the needle in, but there's no numbing the uterus.
Oh, my word.
So I was having full-blown contractions while they were doing this procedure. And that one was definitely more painful. But I mean, we'd done all that. And the fluid, they said, was very likely of a blind-ending esophagus.
Okay.
And so the connection from her mouth downwards was blind ending. It ended, it didn't connect to the stomach. And they said that she wouldn't be able to eat from that. She wouldn't be able to receive nutrition orally. So, you know, we had plans for that too.
Yeah.
We had plans for everything. And that was one of the first things they checked. And they put the tube down. I think they did some x-rays. I wasn't there for it. And they confirmed, nope, full connection. She's fine.
Yay.
I mean,
there's another bit of hope, right? It's like all these things you're like, hope.
That's it. And over the first like 48 hours, I mean, there were hiccups and she had some things that were declining, but then there was a way to counteract that and make it better, and it worked. She had scans done of her heart, and the cardiologist who had come over from Children's was a miracle. Like she gave us so much hope, not hope that we shouldn't have had, but hope that she specifically said that she is more than happy to help treat our little girl, knowing her condition, regardless. Not hope like she's going to be fine.
No.
But hope that she was willing to support her regardless of her condition.
Yeah. I'm not just going to cross this off because of this. She's a baby and I'm going to do whatever I can to help.
Yeah. And when she got her scan done, all these horrible conditions that she was like, that they were diagnosing her with while she was in utero, she didn't have. She had a VSD, and that was it, which is a hole in her heart from one to the other. And that was it. It was very large. It probably wasn't an option to repair it surgically if we ever got to that point. But she said, regardless of the hole, there is no flow going anywhere it shouldn't. Her heart is functioning brilliantly.
Okay. Amazing.
So that was great. We had the general surgeons from the Children's come over, and they checked her belly. They checked her full umphalocele, and they're like, looks perfect. The only concern that they had with it is that the peritoneum for an umphalocele baby is normally quite robust.
Didn't say that you clearly have a medical background because your terminology is so good, but what does that mean?
Okay. So the covering, that sac covering her liver and bowel, is normally quite sturdy. Like it's not friable. It's not just very easily to tear and break and things like that.
Okay.
It's got a bit of strength behind it. There are times where it doesn't, but in a general, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And hers wasn't. So that's how we knew that the C-section was the best option, because if I had delivered her vaginally, there's a very big chance that would have ruptured. And then it would have turned into a gastroschisis, which is a similar condition, but the contents of the abdomen that have herniated out is no longer contained within a sac. It is free. And that would have been a complication that she just didn't need to have. So they just said, look, we do need to be careful because this is definitely a lot more fragile than it should be. But there's no tears. It's looking good. Liver looks good. Bowel looks good. She was weeing and pooing the way she should. The only
I remember when Milli was weeing and pooing as well, and I was like, oh yay! Like, you get so much hope from those little things. Oh, she's weeing. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, Daniel was the first person to do her cares. He had done her cares while I was up in the room between having seen her for the first time and then coming back and staying with her. And he had already changed his first pooey nappy with her. So like that, and it was just sort of like, it was so amazing to hear all of those things. We just kept getting good news, and all the things that they said would be wrong weren't anywhere near as bad as what was said. And we had a lot of hope. We knew that she was struggling with things regardless, and it did start becoming a snowball effect. One thing would get worse and we'd fix that, and then another would get worse. We were constantly up and down. If we weren't with her, we would leave to go to the room to either shower or eat, and then immediately go back. And during that time, we would get a phone call going. Like we only left when things were good.
Yeah.
And while we were gone, we would get a phone call going, hey, we need you guys to come down.
Yeah.
Things were changing so quickly. And because of her condition, they weren't willing to just immediately step in and counteract things without our permission.
Of course, yeah.
It was a roller coaster, a really bad, horrible roller coaster. But we had her on the Wednesday, and we are the sort of people who like to have our baby and come home and have a little moment and then have visitors.
Okay.
And we knew that this was going to be different. We didn't want to take away the opportunity for Tori to meet her family, but we also needed to think about what we needed.
Yeah.
So on Thursday, we had all of our children except for my stepson come up. It was so disappointing. Our stepson was supposed to come up, but he had fallen ill. And he just wasn't. There was no way it was safe for him to come up, be around Tori or any other babies there while he was sick. So we decided to wait on bringing him home and then for him to come up to the hospital with everybody else. But everybody else came up, like our kids.
Yeah.
The boys saw her. They were excited. They were a little bit intimidated, but they were interested.
Yeah.
My two younger girls were over the moon. They were so excited, like, oh my God, I just want to love her. And my eldest daughter, I think she was scared. She understood all of this the most, and she wouldn't touch her. And she stood beside her and she just watched over her. And I have photos of her just standing next to her, looking down at her. And I said, honey, you can touch her. It's okay. You can hold her little hand and you can put your hand over her and she will feel that you're holding her.
Yeah.
And she was just too scared to touch her.
Yeah.
She never cried. My eldest, she never cried. And, that was a very emotional time. But I was so glad that they had come. And, moving on from that, it was constantly up and down still. And then we finally got to Sunday morning. And I said to Daniel, I was like, right, we've been gone from home for so long. Things are really good. Like Saturday night had been really hard because she had had another drop on Saturday and we needed to put a central line in. But they were really worried about the risk of bleeding. Her platelets were low, so we'd spent all day on Saturday correcting the problems that we could so it was safer for her to have her central put in. Saturday night they put it in. It went brilliantly. Like there was no hiccups with getting it in because they had run through all the risks with us, like it may not be placed properly. We may have to have a couple of goes. She may bleed a lot. This may become really risky. And nope, first go, done. Because of the setup and stuff like that of the procedure, it took about 2 hours, but the actual procedure was only about 20 to 30 minutes. And it was a huge success. And once that was done, I think it was around midnight, 1 a.m.-ish. And we're like, okay, we're going to go to bed. And then Sunday morning, everything was good. And I said to Daniel, I was like, right, our boys need us. Our older kids, including our stepson, had gone up to my parents' house to have some time that wasn't in their own house where they were concerned and worried and, surrounded by our normal living that included Tori. They wanted to take their minds off things, so they took them up to their house. And it was just our boys home with a friend of ours. And Daniel was like, okay, all right, I'll go home. Tell me as soon as anything, any news, anything. And it was the first time he had left. Just after lunch, like it was early afternoon, I got pulled aside and I thought things were really good. And then we got some results and they're like, hey, look, we need to talk about some bloods that we've gotten back. Is Daniel here? And I said, no, he's not. He's gone back home to spend some time with our boys. He's probably going to come back tonight, but he may spend the night with them. I'm not sure what's going on. And essentially they had drawn bloods in the morning, and I wasn't aware that they had these concerns. But regardless of everything we were doing for her, she was now starting multi-organ failure.
Oh.
And that was the first bit of news that I had to stomach on my own. And I knew they didn't tell me that, we had decisions to make, but I knew that we had decisions to make. Like, they were trying to not say it, but make me aware.
Yeah. Yeah.
I called Daniel and I said, hey, you need to come back. I tried to not make it drop everything and run now, but I did make it, you need to come back. Like, you need to organize yourself and get back here sort of now.
Yeah.
And so we slowly started organizing that. He did end up making the plan that he was going to stay with the boys. So then we didn't have anyone with the boys. So I was like, okay, screw it. I'll feed the boys and let's pack them up and bring them up to the hospital. And then
they were not were you guys on level 6 with Tori?
Yeah. So
the boys weren't allowed in there?
Yeah, no, they were.
They were.
Yeah, so they didn't come into her. She was in the neonatal cardiac critical care.
Okay.
They weren't allowed in with her, but they were allowed in that family room, the quiet room, right at the entry of the ward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it got a little bit more urgent about an hour later. And that's when I called Daniel and I said, hey, whatever you're doing, pack it up and leave right now.
Yeah.
He's like, I've still got the boys. Is that going to be okay? I said, just put them in the car and get here right now.
How far do you live from the hospital?
An hour.
Oh, shit. So you guys are on the Gold Coast?
No, we're a little bit more rurally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he did that. And, during that time we had some visitors, not a lot, but some. And at the same time, because I didn't have any clean clothes. And so his mum was actually on her way up to drop me off some clothes. So she had actually stopped by the house before I'd even called Daniel to pick up clothes from Daniel for me to take to the hospital. And she ended up arriving before Daniel, and I can't even remember, but I don't think she knew that he was already on his way up because things had changed. Things had gone from good to really bad. And so when she got there, because of the situation, she decided to stay, and she sat in that family room with us also. We spent all night. We pulled out that couch because it pulls out into a bed, we found. Our boys slept on that, and we constantly alternated. One was sitting with our boys in that family room and one was sitting with Tori. And we kept having the conversations, and then we decided that, hey, I think we need to talk to palliative. We hadn't made our mind up with what we were doing, but we knew that the conversation needed to be had, so we knew what to do.
Were they giving you options, or is this when about Hummingbird House or taking her home or anything like that at this point?
Hummingbird House had already been offered to us because of the situation. This was expected. So we were spoken to about Hummingbird House while I was pregnant still.
Yeah.
We didn't take up that offer. We didn't want to. I think it's a beautiful thing, and hearing AJ's side of Hummingbird House, having that she went, I am so glad I heard that. because I was scared to go there.
Yeah.
I don't think I regret turning that offer down, but I was so glad to hear somebody's personal experience with it and have it be so positive, even with such a negative.
Yeah.
But they knew we wanted to stay where we were.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly what everything meant. So then I had to sit down with Daniel and explain it to him. And he's like, oh, but what about this? Can we do this? I said, honey, we're not coming back from this now.
Yeah.
And he's like, but she keeps getting better. And it was like I had to do the convincing to have him understand that she wasn't going to get better anymore.
Yeah.
And by this point, she was so swollen
from
everything. I mean, I wish I had known about that.
Yeah.
The swelling was scary.
Yeah.
She didn't look like my baby anymore. And I had to sit there and tell him that she wasn't going to get better. I didn't even want to hear that.
Yeah.
And then I was having to say it. And for a little bit, I felt like I was trying to convince him to understand that there wasn't anything more we could do. And he spent some more time with her while I sat with the boys. Spending time with her is what helped us understand what was necessary.
Yeah. You don't want to see them in pain anymore.
No. And on that Sunday is when they had said, hey, look, there's pain.
Yeah.
She didn't show signs of pain until now, and we're telling you now there is pain.
Yeah.
And that was part of the conversation that I had to have with them while Daniel was away. And they're like, what would you like to do? I said, immediately, we need to do pain relief, please.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't need to speak to Daniel about that. We had already discussed immediately, as soon as she shows signs of pain, we need to do everything we can to subside that and then start making some serious decisions on what to do next. Is this going to subside? Is this going to improve? We didn't want her to be in pain.
Yeah.
And so she had pain relief on board just as required. And the morning came of Monday morning, and they were then having to keep that up as a regular. Her breathing was getting worse. Her heart was now struggling because of all the fluid. It was, she just wasn't her anymore. We sent a blanket message out to everyone saying, hey, look, this is the situation. If you want the opportunity to spend some time with her, you need to take that now. Mm-hmm. We spoke to palliative in the morning. And we made the decision together we didn't tell each other that that's what we were doing, but we knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
We didn't want to say it out loud.
Yeah.
But there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
She was just declining more and more. And in a way, I do regret not having people come in earlier, because she had gotten to the point where handling was now painful for her. She couldn't be held.
Yeah.
And so when people came in, they would stand around her bed. We would have people come and stand around her bed where normally it was only 2 people allowed in, but they put those shields up, and we had everybody come in and stand around her and talk to us and talk to her, but nobody could hold her. yeah, that was definitely hard. I
remember when they did all this for Milli, and I remember just thinking, God, they do it so well, but you don't realise that only like 2 months earlier they were doing it for you in the exact same space.
Yeah, and it was, and they just did it so gracefully and with so much compassion.
Yeah.
And we were looking at all the other babies in the room, and that combination of grief and envy. I mean, I hated everyone in that room because their child wasn't dying.
Yeah.
Once we got to that point, I hated everyone.
Yeah.
But I think it was around lunchtime, and people started to leave after spending their time with us and with Tori. We had our kids come in Monday morning before everybody, and this time my stepson, Daniel's son, got to meet Tori also. There was no way we were going through that without him. And she got to meet her big brother. I think that's what we were making sure happened, that whoever could meet her met her.
Yeah.
And then everybody left, and we sat down with the palliative team from the Children's Hospital, and they I don't even remember what they said, but it was just, what do you want? How do you want this to happen? These are your options. And I don't even know. But then, at the end, they're like, okay, do you want to start? And I'm like, hold on, start what? What are we doing? And they're like, okay, well, we're going to do this. And they're like discussing all these steps. And I'm like, oh, but I want to get to my room. I want to spend those last moments with her in my room, away from everybody else. We had people offering to stay with us while this happened. And I am one of those people that just wanted to hide away. I am one of those people that just wanted to retreat, and everybody can leave us alone and get away from us. And I felt so protective of her.
Yeah.
It was the only thing I could do.
Yeah.
And so they actually ended up keeping her, they pulled all her lines. So there were no longer any medications on board besides her morphine pump. And that was just keeping her comfortable, keeping her out of pain. Oops, sorry.
That's all right.
I'm just going to turn. Yep. And
her oxygen, was she still on oxygen?
She was still on oxygen. Her needs had dramatically increased over the last 24 hours. And so we knew removing her oxygen probably wouldn't give us enough time to get to the room.
Yeah.
So she remained on her oxygen. Alyssa was back. I'd kept constant contact with Alyssa, and Alyssa's like, I will be there. So I called her on I think it was the Monday morning, because it was so late on Sunday night. And I said, hey, look, this is what's happening. Can you be here for us? And she's like, of course, I'm out right now. I will finish what I'm doing. I'm fairly certain she said she already had her gear in the car. So I think she just came straight from that, or she may have ducked home and come up. But yeah, she was there so quickly. And she met us in Tori's room, and I don't even think Daniel was in there. I think Daniel was sending his parents off and saying goodbye to them. And she walked in and she just hugged me.
Mm.
Oh. And the last of our lines were removed. And we moved her from her crib to one of those normal open cots that every other healthy baby gets to go into.
Yeah.
And I felt like, even though I'd been walking around for the last couple of days, I felt like I couldn't stand up when it came time to actually leave the room.
Yeah.
So we started walking, and I just cried constantly. I felt like I couldn't walk properly. And they didn't. They took us through this, back way to the back elevator, and, not having to walk through everybody.
So you were walking up to your hospital room,
Yeah.
and they were taking Tori in the crib?
Yeah.
Or you were taking... Yeah.
Yeah, so we were... we were heading up to my room.
Yeah.
And when we walked through, and we went up the elevator, and we walked out, and we were on the ward. And we reached my door, and I think it may have been a butterfly.
No.
There was like this beautiful picture on my door, and I'm so sad I can't even remember what it was. But there was this beautiful laminated picture on my door, and it hadn't been there before. And I hadn't recognized that it was there before or something, but it ended up being it wasn't there before. They had called the ward and let them know what we were doing. And what it was a sign to anybody who was going to come into our room to say that our baby was passing or had passed.
Yeah.
And that we needed gentle, we needed quiet. They let us spend as much time as we wanted just sitting there with her oxygen on. We didn't really know what we wanted to do. They would ask us, are we ready? And it's sort of like, no, we're not.
I'm never ever going to be ready for this. Yeah.
And Alyssa's taking photos of Daniel and I holding her. I sat on the bed, and Daniel sat next to me on the bed also. And I just held Tori in my arms, and I just took in all of her, and I didn't know how to say, okay, how to say, okay, we're going to do this. And I still really struggle with this, because they would always tell me, Trisomy 18 babies, they will just die.
Yeah.
Their condition will just take them. And it can happen so suddenly. And all I was thinking is, we've been so cheated.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get that.
Yeah.
And
here you are, what, 5 days later? 5?
Yeah. We're here having to make that choice.
Oh, yeah.
Her trisomy's not taking her.
Yeah.
We're having to do this. And I constantly struggle with the fact that while it's not what happened, it still feels like the only reason she died is because we took her off her supports. And I know that's not what it is, but it is. And I'll never think otherwise, regardless of whether it's healthy to think that or not. I know the truth, but
if you didn't make that decision, then her organs would have failed, and she would have been in pain, and it would have been in a more traumatic way.
I mean, since she's passed, we've had those touch-in appointments with my obstetrician, with the bereavement team at MARTA, and with her neonatology doctor. And we've asked the questions, you know, how much time would we have had with her had we not made that decision? And like, her doctor was completely honest, and I respect that so much, and I appreciate that so much. And he said, honestly, you may have had more time with her, yes, but you would have had time with her. She wouldn't have had time with you.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
And we would have been like, you know, if we had decided not to do that and follow that step, we were doing that for ourselves, not for her.
Yeah.
And that was selfish of us.
Yeah.
To try and make that decision. We never wanted to see her go through pain, and as soon as pain was recognized, it wasn't going away.
No. And you made the best decision for your daughter.
Yeah. And I mean, we held her for a while, and then I just turned and I looked and I'm like, okay. And we said that we didn't want her deprived of oxygen. So we had prongs with a gentle pressure that gave her the oxygen if she was if she was capable of breathing. It was there for her to help her. And they gave us the same thing. You know, she could take a breath. She could take no breaths. Or she could sit with you guys for a day.
Yeah.
And we had no idea how it would go. I had no idea. I don't know if Daniel had suspicions, but I really, really hoped for some time without everything hooked up to her, where I could just be her mum.
Yeah.
And we put the prongs on her face. We removed everything and put the prongs on her face. And it was obvious straight away that she was not going to cope with that as her only support.
Yeah.
She took a couple of breaths and then she just slowed. And I had my arms around her, and Daniel had one arm around me and one arm around her. She just stopped everything. And then she kind of curled in, and we could tell that she was really trying. And I just told her it was okay. And then it was only seconds after that she had gone. I just never wanted to let her go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew she just had so much peace come over her. Watching all the tense in her face and her body let go. I knew that she felt better.
Yeah.
But I felt horrible.
Yeah.
We just cried. we just touched her and we cried. There was some time passed and they asked if we were ready for the doctor to come in, and I don't know, we just never thought about the fact that while we were preparing that we would most likely lose our daughter, we forgot the doctor coming in and confirming, and she came in and she checked her, and she asked, and she's like, can I touch Tori? Can I check her? And we said yes, and she said, okay, I'm really sorry, but she has passed. And even though we knew that she had, just hearing that, like, and we broke again. And then
had the look of her changed? I remember this time so vividly, and I just remember the way she looked. It was just so awful, and it's heartbreaking. It shocked me. Like you said before, you wish you knew that the swelling was going to come even when she was still alive. Milli was swollen a lot while she was earthside, but the way she changed when she had passed was so horrific that I really wasn't prepared for that.
I mean, Tori's colour, it definitely changed, but I struggled to relate to that because her colour wasn't great anyway. Honestly, I love the pictures that I have of Tori the following day. We spent that afternoon, evening, overnight with her. We took some beautiful photos with Alyssa after everybody had left. I got up, they brought in a cuddle cot for her with the cooling pad and things like that. And we decided that we needed to get up. So I handed her to Daniel, and Daniel handed her in the cuddle, placed her down in the cuddle cot. And we're like, okay, we need to breathe. This has happened.
Yeah.
What do we want to do now?
Yeah.
And it was just like, it had started all over again. Like, we thought that...
More decisions.
Yeah, we thought that, okay, everything's done and now we just get to grieve. But it wasn't that. There was so many more decisions now. Do we stay with her? Do we go? Do we do anything with her? Do we fall into a pit and not look after ourselves? Or do we get up and do we shower and get dressed and things like that? It was so confusing. But I wanted to clean her. I wanted to give her a bath and dress her and things like that. And that's what I did. They brought in this beautiful Precious Wings box. And Precious Wings, they are amazing.
Explain what it is.
Precious Wings is a charitable organisation that donates boxes and their time to bereaved parents. They don't just have boxes for child loss. They have boxes for miscarriages. It's beautiful. It's full of books and mementos and keepsakes. We treasure ours and everything that came in it. It came with 2 little bears, and they were a little George bear. Yeah. Tori sits right next to my bed, and it's a little George bear, and George is the name of Daniel's grandfather, one of the most important people in Daniel's life.
Yeah.
And we just saw it as this, like, that's perfect. So Tori had a George bear, we had a George bear. And in this box was a hairbrush. Now, one thing that I was over the moon about, and with everything that was going on, I could not get over being so excited and so happy that I had a baby with hair. All of my babies were bald. All of them. And Tori came, and they're all blonde. They're all blonde. And Tori came out with jet black long hair.
Wow.
And I'm just like, of course she does. And I was so excited and giddy. And I don't even know how I managed this, but when I laid her down, I moved her from her cuddle cot back onto my bed, and I laid her down to bath her and clean her over and dress her. And we pulled this brush out of the Precious Wings box. And I brushed her hair, and I have photos that Alyssa took of me brushing her hair, and I am so happy. I have this huge smile on my face. And I look back at that photo and I'm like, should I even share that with people?
Yeah.
Like, she had died only hours before this, and I'm standing over her smiling the biggest smile because I get to brush her hair. And it was so... Sometimes I feel guilty.
Why?
Because why should I have been happy?
Because you still got to have that time with her.
It was just so exciting to be able to do those things with her.
Yeah.
And we had this beautiful dress for her. And we put her in this dress, and it was just amazing. I had held on to this dress nearly the whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
And it fit her perfectly. That was great. And we took some great photos of the both of us with her and her on her own. And my partner is Maori. She had her crotaway and her greenstone. That actually arrived on Monday, the day that she died. We had all been really worried that it wasn't going to arrive in time, and it arrived on Monday.
What are these? Traditional?
Yeah, from the Indigenous culture from New Zealand, he is Maori, and we just wanted to make sure that she had as much protection as she possibly could. And having them arrive to the hospital on that day and being able to give them to her, it gave me so much comfort. I can't thank my in-laws enough for making sure that part was taken care of for her.
Yeah. What a blessing.
It really was. And, you know, we started sort of organising that we were done with taking photos and we just wanted to spend some time with her. And Alyssa sort of started packing up. She had been there for so long. And then we sort of started just having a basic conversation with her. And then I realised she had left her family on her birthday.
Oh.
And I had no idea. It was her birthday that day, and she had said, oh, you know, my son's messaging me, asking when we can do cake. And I'm like, what? And she had given up her birthday to come and be with us on that day. And we apologized profusely, and she's just, I would have done anything. Like, I would have given up anything to be here with you guys. And I truly believe that she was just so...
It makes me cry because people are just so freaking beautiful in this scenario. Like, of course she did that. Of course, you know.
I couldn't let that go with how beautiful she was about all of it. And, you know, we thanked her over and over again, and then she left, and then it was just Daniel and I, and we were just in this room with her. And we went through this period for the first couple of hours that we were alone with her. It didn't feel like she was gone. I wasn't understanding that she was gone, and we had decided, okay, if we're going to stay here, we need to eat. So we'd organised for some food. We'd asked for some food, and they were bringing it up. And then we'd placed her in the cuddle cot again, and the phone in my room had rung. And it was so loud and so sudden, because the room was so quiet, and it was so loud and so sudden that we both jumped and went to grab her because we thought it was going to scare her awake.
Yeah,
we
wow.
thought that we had this beautiful sleeping baby next to us, and that the sudden noise of this phone was going to wake her up. And we did that, and then we just cried again because it was another realization that she wasn't here. And I don't even know how or why we thought that. We just did. It was just an automatic response. We spent the night constantly alternating with sleeping with her in the bed and putting her back in the cuddle cot and holding each other, and then we would sleep with her again. And then in the morning, they asked us, what do you want to do? And what do you mean? And they said, well, do you want to stay here or do you want to go home? I never wanted to leave. I never, ever wanted to leave. I knew that I had to. We did make the decision to leave that day. We left in the afternoon. I do regret that. I think I needed more time with her. The following morning, she looked like my baby again. And that's why the photos of her after having passed are my favorite, because she looks like her again. The swelling had subsided. Yes, her colour wasn't great, but her colour hadn't been great the entire time. She didn't actually look all that different. She just looked like this precious, beautiful little baby, and her face was just so perfect, and I would just touch it and stroke it all the time. And I kept brushing her hair. I kept playing with her hair, and I took so many photos of her hair. But by the afternoon, we knew we needed to go, and my dad came up, and he was the first person to see her. And he held her and cried, and then they asked us how we wanted to leave, and I didn't think that these were decisions that we had to think about. They said, do you want us to remove Tori from the room before you leave? Do you want to leave Tori in the room? And all I kept hearing is leave. Like, it's like, I don't want to leave her anywhere.
Yeah.
And the drive home was confusing too, because we were so upset and so sad that we were laughing at someone. I don't know, they did something stupid while they were driving in the city, and it's sort of like, oh my God, the city driving. And we laughed. And then we cried again. And then we were having random conversations about traffic.
Yeah.
I thought it would consume me more. But I've definitely noticed that between when she passed and now, I mean, we're 4.5, maybe 5 months in now, and I am finding now harder than the early days.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I don't understand why it's harder now than it was when we had her funeral.
Yeah.
And when we got her ashes back. And all of those things. But I think, you know, this has been horrific for everybody involved. But everybody's kind of moving on now.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize that that would happen. I'm struggling to understand how anybody's okay. Nobody's okay, but how are people going on with life knowing she died?
Yeah.
And while I know, I don't know at the same time.
Yeah.
We have done all these appointments and meetings with her medical team and mine to go over and discuss things. But it's not really making anything better. We know now that there may be a reason as to why this has happened. That was a really big announcement for us.
Meaning that you guys are carriers, or you're not sure? Like, is that how Trisomy 18 works?
I mean, we were told the entire time during the pregnancy that there is nothing that came from Daniel or I to cause Tori to have had Trisomy 18.
Okay.
And then we have recently found out, because our son also sees a geneticist, we had the conversation with her, and she's like, no, that Trisomy 18 can be inherited in a very particular way, but it can be.
Right.
And so I brought this up with Tori's doctor only a few weeks ago, and he confirmed. He's like, well, yeah, that is correct. And I'm like, why wasn't this spoken to us? And then I expressed to him that we don't have a healthy living child. I mean, we miscarried before Tori. We have our two boys who are, one is disabled and one is significantly delayed. And something that we haven't actually shared with very many people at all is, as much as we took all the normal precautions you're supposed to take after having a baby, I fell pregnant. And I did not know that I had fallen pregnant until I started miscarrying.
Since Tori?
Yeah. So I was struggling with the recovery, because you get told that you go home and rest and have this, fourth trimester period where you just rest. And I went home without a baby. No.
Yeah.
I couldn't. So I delayed my recovery. I did make it worse. I didn't mean to, but I didn't know how to cope.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand why I was so not okay. And then suddenly I started bleeding massively. I went to the doctor that day and found out I was going through a miscarriage.
Fuck.
And I still don't know how to wrap my head around that. I don't know how to feel, because I'm sad and I'm happy. I'm not happy, I'm sad and I'm glad, because one, we're not ready to be handling that. But it was so upsetting. And we spoke to Tori's doctor about that. And after he heard that, he's like, oh, I actually didn't know that. So now we're going through the process right now of having all of our chromosomes tested and all those sorts of things. And it looks like we're going to end up having to go through IVF if we want to have any more children, to not run the risk of something horrible happening again.
Yeah.
They have some, theories as to what's going on, but, we're months away from finding out what the answer is, and then we need to make a decision as to whether we'll have more children or not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
My word.
It's just, it's so full on. And the anger that you feel sometimes as well. Like, I have been so angry at people. And And I don't even know why. Like, I can tell you why while I'm angry, but I don't know why I'm angry over that.
Angry at people you know? Or...
Yeah. And even people I don't know. People that I just sort of see on a regular basis because they're at my local shop, but I don't really know them. You know, the last time they saw me, I was heavily pregnant. And then the next time I see them, I'm not. And they're like, oh, you know, you had the baby. And I hate that they made that statement. Because I walk around and it's sort of like, I want to tell you that this is how I'm feeling, but that's probably inappropriate because you're not even looking my way. But I want everybody to know that I have a daughter. She's just not here.
I do the same thing. I walk through the shops and I look at people and I think, I just lost my baby. I just lost my baby. I look at everyone and I think, I literally am like, I want you to know that I don't have, like, I just lost my child. And it's, you feel psychotic. You feel so strange, but you're looking at everyone like, they don't know. They don't know. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't like, Yeah,
I don't know how to handle that still because I feel like I need to wear a shirt that that says it because I just want everybody to know about her. I want to talk about her.
Yeah.
I love when somebody will start talking to me, like my friend will start talking about her child and then I will go, oh yeah, Tori, and talk about Tori also. And I love being able to share her. And sometimes I cry, but I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. But it's so much joy to be able to speak about her.
Yeah. And hear her name and say her name.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
What is your little sign? Do you have like a sign, like we have Milli Rose, so when people see roses and we were obsessed with pink. So anytime someone sees something pink or the sky is pink or a flower is pink, like people send that to me. Do you have something for Tori?
I mean, I think I kind of see her in a lot of things. Things I never used to pay attention to that stand out so much now. And I like to think that that's because of Tori, that, you know, some way that she's sending that. We had a beautiful song playing during her funeral. And now I will constantly think of polar bears.
Oh, cute.
Which just so happens to be my partner's, like one of my partner's favorite animals. So, yeah, there's a little song called Winter Bear, and that just means so much to us. And just before her funeral, a couple of days before her funeral, Daniel and I took some time out. We left for, I think it was about an hour, and we left our kids with my parents, and we went and got a tattoo.
Yay!
Something that was just so, like, not necessary at that point in time, but so necessary.
But so necessary, yeah.
Yep. And we both went and got a tattoo, and neither of us knew what we wanted to do, but we wanted her name on us. And I do not have a single tattoo that has anything to do with my children.
Wow. And you did this an hour before the funeral?
No, a couple of days before the funeral.
A couple of days, yeah.
And we went and got her name put on us. And we both plan on doing more with it, but right now, like, this is just what we needed. And now that we have that, our kids see that, and our little boys, they see that, and they would ask what it is, and we would tell them. And now they constantly run around with her name written on their arm in pen, because they walk up to us and they're like, I want baby sister on my arm. I want baby sister on my arm. And then they go, baby sister with a love heart.
Oh, that's so
They want
cute.
her name written on their arm with a little love heart underneath it.
You've opened up a can of worms for kids with tattoos now.
Oh, man.
Oh, so beautiful though.
But yeah, and then we have actually been asked, when can I get it real?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It's like, nah.
That's the can of worms.
Yep. And we just always talk about her, and we constantly think about the things that we can do to involve her. Like with Christmas, we are thinking about the things that we are going to do to include Tori in our Christmas, because we still want to celebrate Christmas with her.
Like what? I need ideas.
I need ideas too, because at the moment, all I'm at is to get a personalised bauble.
Yeah,
or a
awesome.
Christmas ornament. At that point, that's all I'm at.
Course.
We have made the decision, though, that because of how much it meant to us and how much support it gave us emotionally, we're going to make a donation in Tori's name for any special events to Precious Wings.
Yeah, beautiful.
So her name gets spread.
Yeah, because inside the box, because we did get a Precious Wings. I was asking you to explain before, in case anyone listening doesn't know, but we do have two, and inside it has the name of the child it's donated in. Yeah.
The name on Tori's is Archie Tiger, and I think that's so beautiful.
I wonder if Archie's the name on ours. It's either Archie or... I was going to say Arthur. I don't think it's Arthur. I'm just getting it because I just need to. That would be so crazy. And one of my friends actually is a volunteer for Precious Wings. And so she donated a box. I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yeah, no, I can.
She donated a box in Milli's name for us after Milli passed, which I thought was so beautiful. So she lost a little baby, Molly. And so now she knows about Precious Wings and she volunteers for them. She cleans the wraps and wraps them and packs the boxes and stuff. And so she's actually donated one already. Archie Tiger.
Is it really? Archie Tiger Connolly. Yes.
Yes.
Did you get a blue one also?
Yeah.
Yes, so did we. So apparently that's the boys' box.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
My nurse, or not my nurse, Tori's nurse made it up for her. And then the midwife made a comment after we had received it going, oh, it's a boys box. And look, I was ecstatic. I was so happy because the colour is beautiful. And that's the George bear was in it.
Oh,
and I was like...
So was the bear named George?
It's named George. It says his name is George.
That's
yep.
Daniel's grandfather.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Well, yeah, I just saw it as... like a greeny colour. I didn't really think of it as male or female.
Yeah, well, they've got pink ones and yellow ones.
Oh, cute.
Yeah. And
I just love it anyway.
She made the comment that it was the boys' box, and I didn't care at all. It was all beautiful. Yeah. And I was just like so happy because I'm like, what if George Bear wasn't in the girls' box?
Well, he might not have been.
Yeah.
So that was meant to be.
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna make a donation in Tori's name at any special, events and family things and stuff like that. We're also getting married next year, finally.
Yay!
I'm engaged for 3 years yesterday.
Yeah.
And
it's time.
Yep. And we have so much planned out as to how Tori's going to be remembered and involved in our wedding. Tori's going to be our flower girl.
No.
Like she always should have been. And I can't wait to see that. And I'm just so excited to be able to involve her in every part of my life.
Yeah.
Because she's not. It's just so important to remember her.
Yeah, and she always will be. I have friends reach out to me whose mum lost babies 30-odd years ago, and they're still remembered. It's still their big brother, or it's still, they still celebrate their birthdays. They're never forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all I want. I just want her to be remembered always.
Yeah.
Her dad, he really, really misses his little girl. And it's just watching him with her, he didn't move from her for 24 hours pretty much.
Yeah.
Like at one point he kept getting kicked out.
Dylan was the same.
Yeah, and then to watch him have to let go of her.
Yeah.
You never want to see somebody you love go through that. And then we were going, like myself, like I was going through it also, and you were going through it, but we're still watching our partners go through that.
Yeah.
And you're so upset for yourself and your child, and then also your partner. It's, yeah. And
in my interview with Dylan, I said the worst pain was seeing my husband in pain. And he said the same thing. Like, you just see the other person's like face just dying with pain. And that's like the worst pain you could have, is watching your partner lose their child.
Yeah.
You know, it hurts for you, but it hurts seeing them hurt too.
Yeah, we didn't know how to do anything. We have just taken this as it comes. And that's all you really can do. I mean, regardless of how much preparation you're given, nothing makes sense when it happens.
No.
I don't know how people get through the years, but regardless, like, and people say that to us, I don't know how you're doing this. Yeah, well, I don't know either.
I don't know either. I know.
Yeah, but I'm doing it. Like, I wasn't given a choice.
No, that's right.
And I see people with babies, and sometimes I'm fine, and then sometimes I am angry.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we have family. I have 3 family members around us right now that are pregnant, heavily pregnant. And I don't know how to handle that anymore. I thought I was fine. I really thought I was fine, and I am not anymore.
Yeah.
I'm happy, but I'm also really confused about the fact that I am angry as well. I'm not angry at them. I'm just angry at the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a moment the other week where I was jealous that somebody else had a vaginal birth and that I had a cesarean. Both babies passed away, but I was still jealous because of the vaginal birth, because, and this is my friend, she can have a baby sooner than me. And it's my cesarean that's stopping me. And I'm like, I was talking to my psych. I was like, I feel so guilty that I am jealous over a vaginal birth when the outcome was the same. Our babies both passed. How awful.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, that's so valid. Like, you know, it's, they're just, and you, you know, I also have friends that are pregnant, and you have the right to be sad and jealous and angry and all of the things over pregnancy, over babies, over healthy babies, over everything. Like, it's just, there's no right or wrong way in any of our emotions.
I think going through all of this, anything that is felt is valid.
Yeah.
It's just making sure you get to that point to understand, are you safe?
Did you just hear that?
Yeah, I did.
That's thunder.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just really important to get to that stage where you understand that anything you feel is valid. Do not beat yourself up for feeling any of that. And I finally am at that stage where, regardless of what I feel, I'm like, it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I have a really good day and I live life, and nobody would suspect that this is what we're going through.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm a miserable, horrible person to be around, and company should not be around because I'm probably going to be really mean.
Yep.
And everything in between.
I literally thought last week Dylan was better off without me. I was like, he's drawn the short card. I can't even give him a baby.
Yep.
This is all too hard. I'm actually now super depressed and I can't even leave bed. He should just be with somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, and then this week I'm like, not on top of the world, but I'm, you know, somewhat better. I'm out of bed. I'm smiling, and, you know, it's a fucking roller coaster.
It really is. It really is. And I never want to go through this again. I mean, you don't. We will never risk having a child that could potentially be this unwell ever again.
Yeah.
hence why the testing and the IVF talks and all that sort of stuff, because going through this once, going through this twice just isn't going to...
petrifies you.
Yeah, I'm scared we won't survive. Like, and I don't just mean the relationship. I'm scared of how our mental health will go. It has been too much.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that even though I'm yet to take those steps, I am understanding how important it is to make sure that you are talking to people when making decisions for the future and stuff like that, to make sure that you're going to be the healthiest person you can for yourself, for your partner, for your child.
And I think that's what I was just about to say to you then. Like, you know, I beg you to see your GP and get a mental health plan for both you and Daniel. Get Daniel to do his. I said to Dylan, you know, I normally do all Dylan's health things, and I just said, I can only take care of myself right now. I'm struggling to do that. You need to do this yourself, but I need you to see the GP and get a mental health plan. And he's had to go get bloods, but please do all of those things. I've been seeing the psych since the week Milli passed, and I don't think I would have survived. I've seen her weekly, and I just had to do all those things because there's been days where one day she was running an hour and a half late, and I just sat in my car and waited because I knew I needed to see her. And, you know, it's so important. It
is. Daniel has actually taken that step already.
Yay.
Yeah, so I think his first appointment is next week.
Amazing.
And I was organising to speak to people through Red Nose, through SANS and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think I would prefer that sort of stuff is done. It's done via telehealth and Zoom, and I think I just need something a little bit more personal.
Totally. And if you see a psych and they're not the right one, find another one.
Yep.
Like it's, you know, it is just so vital. And you can find a good one.
Yes.
Sift through the shit and you'll get a good one. It's the same with GPs. But
It is. I was so lucky with ours. I think our GP has kind of become my sounding board a little bit because he knows that I haven't gone and organised psych. So when I see him, I just, I
ask him for a mental health plan, get one of those, ask him for a recommendation of a psych that deals with baby loss, and it's going to be good for you.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you just for sharing your story. I can't believe you literally just stumbled across me on Facebook and listened to AJ's podcast, the first one, and it's about Trisomy 18. Like, that is just such a blessing.
It is.
And that is not a coincidence.
It has given me so much, like internally, just so much warmth. Hearing AJ's story and just knowing that it's so sad that it's so common, but it's so nice to know that I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Because in my environment of my circle, I am the only one.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to make this circle of women who are all in this, and that's what I'm hoping with the podcast. It's like, okay, we're not alone. And I think the thing that's shocking me the most is that not only are people around us going through this, you're only a few months behind me.
Yeah.
I'm interviewing a girl in Canada next week who found me on Instagram. She's like the same month as us. And it's like, not only is this happening, but like a fucking lot, and like now and around us and here. And then I'm also talking to people who lost their babies 6 years ago and the grief is still this close. You know, she says you do learn to get up each day and get on with life, so to speak, but the grief is still there in your heart. Like, it's never going to go.
Listening to stories of parents surviving their grief years later, I mean, they're still feeling the same things I'm feeling now. And in a way, it sounds horrible, but it makes me feel so much better because I know that I'm not going to get too busy that I forget about her.
I felt the same.
I mean, you don't ever think, oh, I could possibly ever forget my child, but I am so scared that might actually happen. But I know it's not, but it's still a fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially as the years go on and you feel like you might end up being the only person who speaks about them and thinks about them still on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel you. Well, it has been such a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. It is, given me a lot.
I love that, and I felt it, and I loved crying with you, and I loved hearing all about it. I felt every little piece of it, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And I know this is going to help somebody else who's going to be scrolling social media, and your one's going to come up, and, you know, they're going to have a trisomy 18 baby as well, and they're going to feel that same love and pain in one that you had with Tori.
Something that I think should definitely be made more like awareness, because trisomy 18 is the second most common trisomy after trisomy 21, Down syndrome. And it's something that people just don't know.
Is it tested for in the NIPS test?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we had the NIPS test, but CDG isn't tested. So that's how we got to a fucking where we got to. But okay, it is. I'm more than happy to interview as many trisomy 18, stories out there, because I'm sure they're all somewhat sadly fucking similar. And, even if you have a NIPS test, that's still not done until 12 weeks. And then you find out at 20 done at 9 weeks, find out at 12.
Yeah.
And so,
it's never going to be enough time or like early enough to be able to tell you or, anything like that. But you just hope that something's going to get better so it doesn't happen the way this does.
Yeah. And I guess the aim for me with the podcast is, one, people can share their story and, share Tori and share everything that you went through and all of the grief, but then also be giving advice to people that now have to make these decisions. Like, I'm listening to you now and I'm regretting not staying with Milli longer in the hospital. Like that, we were just in so much shock and so much sadness that we were like, 1 hour later, we were like, we're out. We got to go home. We had 6 days in that hospital in absolute shock, never knew she was sick. And now my baby's died. I need to go home. And I hear all the things you did with her after, and I just wish I stayed longer. We did for a little bit, but not long enough. And so I just hope that people hear this and
they can hear both sides.
And still in the time you're in shock and you don't think about any of it, but hopefully they can think back, or somebody else can listen and be like, hey, I heard this podcast and these girls did this. Yeah. These are the options that you have. So
yeah, I'm already sharing your podcast. I want everybody to know that there is so much more support than Googling.
Yeah. And tell us, we'll finish up, but I know now you've changed career directions because of the experience that you've had. So tell us about that.
I have. I am actually moving to Marta in a week.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is, tell us.
I've been doing disability nursing for such a long time. Obviously, I've had a long time off work as well because of my own medical problems. But there were some parts of this that I wasn't happy with. And I think I really need to be a part of what can change. There were people involved that really just didn't understand the process of the emotions. And I want to add to the profession of people who do understand the emotions. I felt more supported and more safe around people who understood, and I want to be one of those people. I'm moving completely. I'm moving away from all of the nursing pathways that I had said I would go through, and now I'm going through critical care. I'll do peds nursing and palliative.
You're amazing. I know you don't feel it, but you are amazing, and you are strong, and you are brave, and you are all the things that people say that we think no, we're not, but you're amazing. And I love that. And that is so valuable.
I'm looking forward to it being part of my healing. And
Yeah.
and Marta have been brilliant. The bereavement team there are fully aware of what I'm doing.
Love that.
Like my higher ups and all that, they are all aware of my situation, and I have
Incredible. Amazing.
yeah.
We're going to leave it there. I know your phone's been ringing like crazy for the last 2.5 hours.
I'm so sorry.
You're a wanted
it just
woman.
never stops.
Oh, it's so good.
No,
it's so good.
thank you
for
so much.
giving us 2.5 hours of your time, and
Yeah, I'm going to go.
Sending you so much love. Go cuddle your babies.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah. Sending you so much love, and we will clearly be in touch. This is just the beginning.
Yes, thank you so much.
Bye, lovely.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Little Life, Big Loss. If you are here because you have experienced baby loss recently or a long time ago, I'm so sorry. I know this pain will never go away. My heart breaks with you. This is a pain no one ever expects to endure. Or maybe you are listening because you have just found out your baby is unwell in utero, and now you have some really hard-hitting decisions to make. I am, again, so sorry. These are decisions no parent should ever have to make. I hope these podcasts can lighten the load just a little bit in ways to help understand what the road ahead might look like and what your options are. Remember, you always have options. It is your body and your baby. If you have never experienced the loss of a baby and you are here to learn, thank you. We want to be heard and listened to. You will help someone somewhere with the knowledge taken from these podcasts. If any of today's conversation has triggered any uneasy emotions for you, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or lifeline.org. Another organisation working specifically with pre- and postnatal depression and anxiety is Panda. You can find them at panda.org.au. And remember, postnatal depression and anxiety does not discriminate. It can affect both men and women, mums and dads. Please seek help from your GP, a psychologist, your local hospital, a midwife, obstetrician, Lifeline, or Panda. Thank you again for listening. I love you and miss you, my Milli.